I never imagined I would become the kind of man who follows his own wife. But that night, something inside me felt wrong. Not anger, not jealousy, just a quiet instinct, one I had ignored too many times before. She told me she had a late meeting, a big client, a career-defining opportunity, and like always, I believed her. But her location on my phone told a different story. A hotel. Not her office, not a cafe. A hotel. I sat in my car across the street, my heart pounding, telling myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe she was meeting a business partner. Maybe I was overthinking again. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. Then I saw her. She walked out of the hotel lobby with a man I had never seen before. Tall, confident, smiling like the world belonged to him. And the way she looked at him, it wasn't professional. It wasn't innocent. She laughed. She touched his arm. He leaned in and whispered something that made her smile the way she used to smile with me. In that moment, everything slowed down. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. My chest felt heavy, like someone had dropped a stone inside it. I wanted to step out of the car, confront them, demand the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I watched. I recorded. I stayed silent, because I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just betrayal. This was an opportunity. If she thought I knew nothing, she was wrong. I wasn't going to react like a fool. I wasn't going to scream or beg for answers. I was going to stay calm, think clearly, and plan. And what I planned would change everything. That night, sitting alone in the dark car, I made myself a promise. She would never forget what she had done, and soon everyone would know the truth. Before everything shattered, life with Emily felt like a quiet miracle, something fragile and rare that I never thought I deserved. We had met in college, two broken people who somehow found comfort in each other's chaos. She was studying literature, always carrying a worn notebook filled with poems, half-written stories, and dreams she was too afraid to say out loud. I was the practical one, engineering, numbers, and logic, and a carefully planned future. Where I was grounded, she was dreamy. Where I was cautious, she was fearless. Somehow, we balanced each other in a way that felt effortless. Our first conversation happened by accident. She spilled her coffee all over my notes, panicked, and apologized so sincerely that I couldn't help laughing. That laugh became our beginning. We spent long nights walking across campus, talking about everything: dreams, fears, childhood memories, and the scars we never showed anyone else. She told me about her parents' messy divorce, how it made her terrified of betrayal. I told her about my father leaving when I was young, and how it shaped my fear of abandonment. In those confessions, we bonded deeply, promising each other something sacred: honesty, always. After graduation, life moved fast. I got a decent job and she found work at a publishing house. We moved into a tiny apartment with peeling paint and thin walls, but to us, it was a palace. We bought mismatched furniture from thrift stores, burned countless dinners, and danced barefoot in the living room to old songs. Those days felt pure, untouched by reality. Everything felt real. Everything felt ours. When I proposed, I took her back to the campus where we first met. I got down on one knee beneath the old oak tree, my hands shaking. She cried, laughed, and whispered yes in a voice so soft it felt sacred. Our wedding was small, just family, close friends, and a warm summer sunset. Emily looked radiant, her smile brighter than any light in the room. I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. Marriage wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We argued about money, her long work hours, my tendency to shut down emotionally, but we always found our way back to each other. We had rituals: Sunday breakfasts, late-night movie marathons, and long drives where we talked about the future. She dreamed of writing a novel. I dreamed of starting my own company. We talked about kids, a house with a garden, growing old together. It felt like destiny. Then came the subtle changes. At first, they were easy to ignore. She started staying late at work more often. Deadlines, meetings, projects, there was always an explanation. She began guarding her phone, turning it face down whenever I walked into the room. Her laughter became rare, her eyes distant. I assumed it was stress. I tried to be supportive, cooking dinner, giving her space, reminding her I was always there. But something felt off. Our conversations became shallow. She stopped sharing her thoughts, her fears, her dreams. The woman who once told me everything now felt like a stranger living in the same house. The silence between us grew heavier each day. One night, I asked her directly if something was wrong. She smiled, brushed my hair back, and told me I was overthinking. "It's just work," she said softly. "You know I love you." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. The sudden gym sessions, the new perfume, the unexplained mood swings, the emotional distance that grew like a shadow between us. But love has a way of blinding you. I trusted her completely. After all, we had built our relationship on promises of honesty and loyalty. I had no idea how fragile those promises truly were, and I had no idea how close I was to discovering the truth that would destroy everything I believed about her, about us, and about love itself. The truth didn't come crashing down in one brutal moment. It crept in quietly, like a shadow stretching across a room I thought I knew by heart. It started with a notification. Emily had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. Normally, she never did that. Her phone was always in her hand, face down, guarded like a secret vault. The screen lit up. "I miss you already." The sender's name was Daniel. My chest tightened. My mind raced for excuses. Coworker, friend, cousin, anyone but what my instincts were screaming. But my hand hovered over the phone. My heart beat so loud I thought I might pass out. I hated myself for what I did next. But I unlocked it. Her passcode was still our anniversary date. That hurt more than the messages themselves. The texts weren't playful jokes or harmless flirting. They were confessions, plans, emotional intimacy that should have belonged only to us. "Last night was perfect. I wish he knew how unhappy you really are. We'll figure out how to be together soon." My hands trembled as I scrolled. Photos, voice notes, inside jokes I didn't understand. Proof that while I was planning our future, she was already building one with someone else. I felt sick. My vision blurred. The world around me felt unreal. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I watched, listened, waited. A part of me hoped this was some elaborate misunderstanding, a nightmare I would wake up from. But reality was relentless. She started leaving earlier in the mornings, dressing up more than usual. Perfume she never wore for me. She smiled at her phone in ways she hadn't smiled at me in months. One evening, I followed her. I told myself it was just to clear my mind, to prove I was paranoid. She didn't go to work. She drove across town and parked outside a small cafe. I watched from my car as she stepped out, scanning the street like she was afraid of being seen. Then he appeared. Tall, confident, smiling like the world belonged to him. He hugged her like it was the most natural thing in the world, and she hugged him back. They sat inside for nearly an hour, talking, laughing, leaning close. At one point, he reached across the table and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. She squeezed his fingers. Something inside me shattered. Later that night, she came home and kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. She asked about my day. She smiled. She acted like the Emily I had loved for years. I couldn't take it anymore. "Who is Daniel?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Her smile froze. Fear flickered in her eyes for a split second. Then she masked it with calm. "He's just a friend," she said too quickly. I placed her phone on the table, messages open. "Friends don't talk like this." Silence swallowed the room. She stared at the screen, then at me, then away. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. Those words shattered me. "So it did happen." She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. "I've been unhappy for a long time. I felt invisible. He listened to me. He understood me." "I listened to you," I said bitterly. "I was here." "It's not the same," she replied, voice trembling. "You changed. We changed." I felt hollow. "How long?" I asked. "A few months." Months. While I was planning our anniversary trip, while I was thinking about buying a house, while I was dreaming about children. "Do you love him?" I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation was the loudest answer of my life. "Yes," she whispered. That single word destroyed the last part of me that still believed in us. In that moment, I realized the woman I loved was gone. In her place stood a stranger who had lied, betrayed, and dismantled everything we built together. As she cried and apologized, something inside me went cold. Love turned to anger. Anger turned to something darker. She thought this was just a mistake. She had no idea what she had started. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't storm out. That was Emily's first mistake, assuming I would react like everyone else. Instead, I smiled. She thought my silence meant I was processing, maybe even forgiving. She didn't know that in silence, I was building storms. Slow, deliberate, unstoppable. For days, I acted normal. Too normal. I made her coffee in the mornings, kissed her goodbye, nodded when she talked about work. She watched me carefully, waiting for an eruption that never came. That tension, the uneasy relief that I wasn't leaving, became my weapon. I began collecting, not just about her affair, but her entire world. Work, friends, family, habits, secrets. And Daniel, every trace of him online, every connection, every pattern. People leave breadcrumbs. They only think no one is following closely enough to see them. I wasn't angry anymore. I was surgical. Revenge isn't about noise or chaos. It's about precision, about timing, about letting someone feel safe right before the floor disappears beneath them. I polished our marriage's surface, planned dates, small surprises, attentive listening. She relaxed. Slowly, cautiously, she believed in us again. She thought maybe forgiveness was possible. That was exactly what I wanted. Meanwhile, I seeded doubt in Daniel. Anonymous messages from a fake account hinted Emily was still deeply entangled with her husband, using him as an emotional crutch. Carefully chosen screenshots suggested intimacy, but left him questioning, paranoid, unsure. Then I did the opposite with Emily. I mentioned, casually, seeing Daniel at a bar with another woman. Just a passing observation. Her eyes flickered. Jealousy, fear, uncertainty. Seeds of distrust planted, nurtured, growing. Weeks passed. Their interactions grew strained. Suspicion bloomed. Arguments erupted. They began monitoring each other, just as I had once done. But I wasn't finished. Emily's career was her fortress. Reputation built with careful steps, precise moves, the illusion of perfection. I quietly gathered proof of her emotional entanglement with Daniel, who happened to be a business partner in a high-stakes project. Nothing illegal, just enough to make whispers happen, to hint that maybe Emily's integrity wasn't untouchable. I assembled the evidence, packaged it meticulously. Not yet delivered. Patience is the cruelest weapon. Then, the final card. I told Emily I wanted to renew our vows. Her eyes sparkled, tears fell. She clung to me, believing this was our second chance, our redemption story. She had no idea the ceremony wasn't a celebration. It was a stage. I invited friends, family, colleagues, the people who mattered, the people who admired her, a crowd hungry for a love story reborn. Behind the scenes, I prepared the presentation. Photos, messages, timelines, every lie, every manipulation, every secret life meticulously documented. No insult, no outburst, just truth, cold, surgical, undeniable. On the night of the WoW renewal, she stood beside me in white, trembling with joy. She thought she had been forgiven. She believed this was her redemption. I took the microphone, smiled at the crowd. "My wife and I have been through a lot," I said softly. "Tonight is about honesty, about truth, about what love really means." She squeezed my hand, unaware that the first slide was already cued. I looked into her eyes and felt nothing. This wasn't about hurting her. This was about teaching her that betrayal carries a price, and the lesson was about to begin. The room glowed with warm, golden light. Laughter, soft chatter, the clinking of glasses, it all felt ordinary. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone important in our lives believed they were witnessing a miracle. A broken marriage rebuilt, vows renewed, love resurrected. Emily stood beside me in white, her hand trembling slightly in mine. Tears sparkled in her eyes, not of fear, but gratitude. She believed she had been forgiven. She believed tonight was proof that love had won. She had no idea love wasn't on the agenda. I raised the microphone, voice calm, steady, almost gentle. "Thank you all for being here," I said. "Tonight is about honesty, about truth, about what it really means to trust someone." Soft nods, polite smiles, some clapped. Emily squeezed my hand and whispered, "I love you." I smiled back. Then I nodded toward the screen behind us. The first slide appeared, a timeline of dates, messages, photos, late-night calls, secret trips, hidden meetings. No accusations, no insults, just facts. Cold, undeniable. The room froze. Emily froze. The second slide, screenshots of her messages with Daniel. Confessions she thought no one would see. Promises, hidden jokes, intimate plans, all glowing like neon scars across the screen. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her fingers loosened in mine. I continued, measured, clinical. "I discovered my wife's relationship months ago," I said. "I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I chose to understand, and then I chose to document." The third slide, blurry but unmistakable photos, her leaving a hotel lobby, sitting across from him at a quiet cafe, laughing in a way she hadn't with me in years. Color drained from her face. Parents stared in disbelief. Colleagues whispered. Daniel wasn't there, but his presence was everywhere, etched into the narrative like a shadow. I turned to her, eyes locked, no emotion. "You thought this was forgiveness," I said softly. "You thought this was a second chance, but this is accountability." She opened her mouth, then nothing came out. Slide after slide, emails, timelines, patterns. How long? How deeply? How carefully every lie had been hidden. "I didn't want revenge," I said, voice calm, unwavering. "I wanted truth, and truth deserves an audience." The room seemed to stop breathing. Emily's heels clicked as she stepped back, each sound echoing in the silence. "I didn't do this to hurt you," I said, soft but firm. "I did this because betrayal thrives in secrecy. Tonight, there is no secrecy left." Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others couldn't look away. Cameras flashed. Whispers. "Oh my God." Her hands shook. She tried to speak. "Please, this isn't—" I raised a hand, gentle, final. "Tonight is about honesty," I said again. "You taught me that." The final slide, a single line. "Trust is fragile. Once broken, it changes everything." The projector clicked off. Silence crushed the room. Murmurs began. Shocked voices, whispers, slow departures. Her perfect image, wife, professional, role model, erased in one night. She collapsed into a chair, staring at the floor. Her white dress now looked like a costume, not a celebration. I didn't shout. I didn't insult her. I didn't gloat. I simply stepped away. As the guests filtered out, whispers trailing like smoke, Emily sat alone. Later, in the quiet apartment, I stood by the window, city lights reflecting on glass. My phone buzzed. Messages, calls, questions. Everyone had seen. Everyone knew. Emily was behind me, silent. "I never thought you'd do this," she whispered. "I never thought I would have to," I replied. No words followed. I felt no triumph, no joy, just a strange, hollow calm. Revenge isn't loud. It isn't explosive. It's precise, controlled, surgical. Her secrecy became public truth. Her lies documented reality. She had felt what it meant to lose control, and I had reclaimed mine. That night, I didn't sleep beside her. I slept peacefully, for the first time in months.
The aftermath wasn't loud. It was quiet, heavy, suffocating. The world had witnessed Emily's collapse. Friends stopped calling, colleagues avoided her, her social media vanished overnight. Daniel disappeared from the story entirely, cutting contact as if she had never existed. The woman once admired, respected, even envied, now lived in silence. And I thought I had won. For weeks, I walked through life with a strange sense of victory. Messages poured in, sympathy, praise, validation, strong, deserved it. They didn't see the nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Revenge had been delivered, but freedom felt hollow, like an echo that refused to fade. Then, one evening, I stumbled on something I wasn't supposed to see, a hidden folder on her laptop. It wasn't well protected, almost as if she wanted me to find it. Inside were medical reports. My hands shook as I opened them. Emily had been diagnosed with a neurological disorder months before I discovered her affair. Degenerative, unpredictable, terrifying. The documents were clinical, cold, but the meaning was devastating. And Daniel? He wasn't her lover. He was her financial advisor, her legal consultant, quietly protecting our future, preparing contingencies, safeguarding both of us against a reality I hadn't even imagined. She had been planning for a future where she might not remember my name. I scrolled further. Draft emails, unsent. I don't want him to look at me with pity. I want him to love me freely, not because he feels obligated by my illness. If he thinks I betrayed him, he'll leave. That might be kinder than watching me disappear. I felt my stomach twist. My revenge hadn't been against a cheater. It had been against a woman terrified of losing herself. The humiliation, the public exposure, the destruction I had orchestrated, it had been aimed at the wrong truth. Later that night, I confronted her. She sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the city lights, smaller, worn, fragile in a way I hadn't noticed before. "You were sick," I said quietly. She didn't flinch. "You found the files," she whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" She laughed softly, no humor in it. "Would you have looked at me the same?" I didn't answer. I didn't want you to stay out of pity. I wanted him to love me freely, not because he feels obligated by my illness. My chest tightened. "You destroyed me instead," I said. She nodded. "I know, and I deserved that. I hid the truth. I lied. I chose silence instead of trust." We sat in silence, the city lights reflecting between us. Then she said something that shattered me completely. "Your revenge taught me something," she murmured. "Truth is painful. Secrets are dangerous. Love without honesty is just fear pretending to be affection." I had planned to be the villain. Instead, I became the tragic hero of a misunderstanding. Days later, Emily moved out, quietly, with dignity. Before leaving, she left a letter. "You were right to demand truth. You were wrong to destroy before understanding. I was wrong to hide. You were wrong to assume. We both lost, but maybe this story will teach someone else that love is not a battlefield. I never saw her again. Months passed. Her condition progressed. Through mutual contacts, I learned she moved closer to family, began therapy, and rebuilt her life quietly. No scandal, no spotlight, just survival. And me? I had my revenge, but I also had my regret. I learned something brutal, unforgettable. Sometimes betrayal is fear in disguise. Sometimes revenge punishes the wrong truth.
And sometimes the villain is simply the one who never asked for the whole story. I caught my wife with another man. What I did next shocked everyone. But the real shock, the one that would haunt me forever, was the truth behind what I had punished. Not every secret is betrayal, and not every revenge is justice. And sometimes, the hardest lesson of all is that love can break in silence, long before lies are ever told.